Okay, let's start. The topic of my presentation is the methods for use in monitoring children development. I also made a table of contents, and I divided my presentation also in three parts. Some background, necessary background info. I'm not going to bother you too long with the background information. You can find a lot of that on the internet, but just a brief background information. And then some methods, of course, the base of my presentation, some methods and assessment tools. You can see them here in the list. And then some existing tools that are used by schools now for the assessment. The background info, what I would like to clear out first is that the assessment of young children is very different from the assessment of older children and adults in several ways. The greatest difference is the way young children learn. They construct knowledge in experiential, interactive, concrete, and hands-on ways, rather than through abstract reasoning and paper and pencil activities alone to the adults. That makes sense, I think. To learn, young children must touch and manipulate objects, build and create in many media, listen and act out stories and everyday roles, talk and sing and move and play in various ways and environments. The expression of what young children know and can do would be best served in ways other than traditional paper and pencil assessments. Of course, the young children not always can write down on papers with pencils. That's consequently the explanation, and it's the third point, the expression of what young children know and can do would best be served in ways other than traditional paper and pencil assessments. Also important to mention is that the assessment is also challenging during the early childhood because the child's development is very rapid, uneven, episodic, and highly influenced by the environment where they are living in. Children develop still in four domains, the physical, the cognitive, the social, and the emotional. And important to mention is that not two children are the same. And each child has its unique rate of development. We need to take that into account when we are assessing and looking for the methods of evaluation of young children, of course. So, like I said before, these variables means that one size fits all assessment will not meet the needs of most young children. So there is no ideal instrument for us for monitoring children because we need to be aware of the several requirements, prerequisitions of children, the way they learn, the way they are influenced by environment. So we need to take that into account. Assessments primarily should be administered in a one-on-one setting to each child by or teacher. So that's also important, not a group setting, but one-on-one to clarify and to monitor the development of the children. When you're going to interpret the assessment results, of course, we need to be aware and sensitive to each young children's unique rate of development. That makes sense. Decisions about a child's placement or special needs should never be based on a single test results. We do the test several times a year, and then you have a better view of the child, and you can interpret the results on a better way and take decisions based on several monitoring sessions. It's very important. We can also use information from other assessments, also outside the schools, from information from teachers, from the parents and family. That's also important to take with you. Let's move on to the second part, the methods of quality assessment tool. An assessment is an assessment and accountability system for young children should incorporate the characteristics of quality, what we discussed in the part one. That's why I would like to mention that in part one. The following are just examples of early childhood assessment tools, one or more of which could be included in a full quality assessment system for young children. And when it's used together in an assessment system, these tools will yield meaningful and useful information to teachers on one side, parents and administrators, and the school board. And that's why I'm going to discuss now the several tools. But like I mentioned, when you use those together, you have a really good and meaningful view of the child in the school. The first one is observation and checklists. A well-defined checklist with observation training is critical and essential for an assessment system. Observations of child's behavior and skills provide the teacher with a powerful measure of the child's abilities. And for example, you can see a teacher observation of a child retelling what happened last night at home with a big smile and expressive language is a truer measure of an oral language skill than asking the child to retell a story in an unfamiliar setting. That's important. The second method is an anecdotal record. Those are short, factual, narrative descriptions of a child behavior and skills over the time, used on several times. Like I said before, it's not on one moment action, it's multiple actions during the whole year. Anecdotal records should be as objective as possible and only a few sentences long. You don't have to write a full book of the young children. You see an example on the screen, just very short and clear what you see, what the student in this case is doing. She's going to read a book, the Peter Rabbits, the two doll Barbies, babies and Jessica. And then she is turning each page and she is watching to each page, and after the page she's retelling the story, so that's enough information to put in this kind of a record. Next to this anecdotal record, you have the running records. Like you see on the graph, it's like the teacher is just in the room. They are similar to the anecdotal records, but they are much longer. An observer objectively writes in a narrative format everything the child did and said for a specific time period, such as for 30 minutes, more or less. Running records are especially helpful in analyzing social skill development or behavior concerns. Running records can also be narrowly focused to its subject areas, such as running records that documents the accuracy and strategies of a child reading a specific passage from a book that you will put in the running records. Okay, I'm just checking the chat function, but that's the answer for the previous question. So let's move on to the fourth tool. It's a portfolio. Most of us will know a portfolio. It's a flexible and adaptable collection over the time of various concrete work samples showing many dimensions of the child's learning. This type of assessment tool is particularly ideal for use in primary grades when children are developing knowledge and skills in several subject areas at different rates. This type of assessment also focuses on the child's strengths and demonstrations of knowledge and skills. So it's clear to mention that it's just for the children who are in the primary grades of the schools. The next one I also mentioned before, that it's not only what happens in schools, but also what happens outside schools. And therefore, we have the home inventories. And parents may also see some behaviors and skills that children demonstrate in only the home setting. The home interventors collect valuable information through a survey or a set of short, open-ended response items completed by the adults at the child's home. And therefore, of course, we need a good cooperation between the teachers and the parents, what is quite different and difficult with the Roma people here in Belgium. But I can imagine that it will be for the other countries as well. The development screenings are short, between 15 and 20 minutes, set of age and content appropriate performance items based on developmental continuum and linked to age typical for the behavior, what you can find in schools, that teachers will have a skill set, what teachers need to know and need to do at a specific age. And this type of assessment is helpful in identifying major development delays that indicate the need of a more thorough diagnostic assessment, and of course the help for teachers to get away from this gap in development young children. Screening assessments should not necessarily screen out a child as not ready, but rather serve as a guide for instructions that reveals the subject area for which the child is ready to begin learning. This type of assessment can also provide guidance for the program needs. Important to say when we work with young children is that we're not going to say that they are not ready or not able to start in another grade, but that we just help them to get them ready and to help them with specific needs they need during the lessons or after lessons, or the needs, and provide information to the parents, and that they maybe can do some exercises, some meaningful exercises at home in order to fill the gap and to be sure that they have developed the right skills to move on in the school. Next is the diagnostic assessments. That identifies a range of strengths and weakness in the child and suggests specific remedial actions. It's like we mentioned in the previous one, that we are not going to say a child is not ready, but that we are going to start with some remedial actions for the children. Classroom diagnostic assessments are not direct measures of academic outcome and should never be used for accountability purposes alone. It's also important. Next, we have in each country, of course, the standardized assessments. They are typically administered in groups and provide normative and scalable data that can be aggregated and reported to administrators and policymakers. Those assessments are direct measures of children's outcomes and are administered under very strengthened protocols, and also used to monitor trends and for the program evaluation accountability. It's more to view, like, to have a look at the program the schools have and to see if children have the same scale as the pupils in other regions of your own country, and of course at EU level. Standardized assessments are paper and pencil based, so also we need to be aware that for the kindergarten this kind of tests are very difficult to do, and it need to be in a one-on-one setting as well. So that's why we prefer to do this kind of assessments from grade 3. Okay, these are a list of just the methods I described. Of course, a lot of things can be found in the documents at the Dropbox, and as well as online, or just after questioning me about it. If you're just looking for some tools to start with it, on the market, yeah, it costs some money, of course, these tools who are combining all these assessment tools, then you do have a good view of the children and that it can be combined. Three tools I've selected. It's the BRIGANCE IED, the Early Childhood Edition, the BATTELLE Development Inventory, and the VINELAND Adaptive Behavior Scales. These are just three tools that can be used to help the teachers to monitoring the child development and to see if there is a fallout on a specific cognitive or emotional aspect and to take action on it. But these kind of tools cost quite a lot of money. But nowadays, schools have their own kind of systems and have their own kind of observation checklist provided by the government here in Belgium. You can have a look here at this slide. What's so special about this first tool? It's more or less the things that are covered in the methods I explained. Each kind of tool would like to, of course, say what their high values are, but they're more or less the same. You have just to have a look at it. The domains that are covered are also the domains that are very important. The physical one, language development, literacy, mathematics and science, daily living, social, emotional developments that are covered in this program. The other one here is the second edition of the BATTELLE Development Inventory, also for early childhood, based also on the concept of development milestones. And then next, we've got the last one here, the VINELAND. Is also updated so it addresses today's special needs population, such as individual and intellectual and development disabilities, autism spectrum disorder, and HD. It's easy in this tool to after the test and after the assessments to have a good look at the students' development. Okay. The conclusion of this presentation is that, of course, the quality assessments should have the following benefits. It gives the teachers available and individualized information about the children's development skills and knowledge. They lead the teacher to select quality early childhood activities and instruction. Important that it not stops at the assessment or after a specific test, but that's just the starting point. It's not the end. It's just a starting point that teachers need to start, take some action and help the students to with their development, and it's just for detecting it and then starts with actions. Also, the programs of schools can be updated after the recent monitoring of the children. Yeah, that's also what I'd like to mention with the last slide, that it helps the teachers in helping developing the children. I think that's all. Yeah, that's all. That's my presentation. It's a very basic one, but very important to understand why we need to do the assessment and what are the pre-requirements, like I said in the first part, and then some tools that can be used.